everyone aware that this webinar is being recorded. My name is Jessica Hartness, and I am the Program Administrator for Community Business Launch, and I am happy to walk you guys through today's presentation. So again, welcome everybody. I think everyone is already muted, but just in case, please be sure to mute yourself so we don't get any feedback during the presentation. As mentioned previously, we are recording this webinar and it will be posted on the website after it's uploaded. I will send out a message or an email to all of those participants who signed up to have access to that recording as well. And if you have any questions along the way, please use the chat feature and I will answer those questions hopefully as they pop up. And if not, at the end, I will have a question and answer opportunity for you to bring up any questions you may have. All right, so what is Community Business Launch? Community Business Launch is a place-based entrepreneurial development strategy that aims to fill a critical need or gap in a community's market. To do this, you want to fill a concentration of vacancies while reactivating white elephant buildings or underutilized properties with expansion or startup efforts. You can do this by training entrepreneurs, creatives, producers, and small business owners on the best practices in business planning and operations. Applications are open tomorrow, but once an award has been given, your community has until the end of next year, December 31, 2027, to complete the training and have your businesses open in your targeted area. And of course, we encourage any and all entrepreneurs with business ideas to participate in opening if they are interested in opening a physical space. And we'll talk a little bit later about nonprofits being ineligible. They are eligible to participate, but ineligible to receive funding. So who is eligible to apply? Local governments and quasi-government organizations such as economic development authorities and industrial development authorities, nonprofit economic development organizations, Main Street organizations, regional economic development groups, and chambers of commerce. For this year, there is $180,000 available to applicants who are looking to apply. The maximum award that you can receive for this year is $60,000. It's a little bit less than the previous years. So be sure to pay close attention to the changes in match requirements. The applications will open tomorrow and be open for submittal through June 17th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Those projects must be underway by January of next year and be completed by December of next year. All applicants are required to provide a 50% match. 40% of the total match must be in the form of cash. And you can see the table below for some examples. So if your organization is hoping to seek $60,000, which is the maximum request for this grant this year, you would need to bring $30,000 in match to the table, $12,000 of which would need to be cash. CBL is typically a cash and in-kind match program, which means that a portion will be cash, and that cash match is intended to go towards the business prizes for the pitch competition. And the in-kind are generally services being provided to the pitch winners. So some examples of in-kind match. We recommend that communities use CBL program to identify these sorts of in-kind opportunities, such as professional services, so attorneys or accountants who are providing pro bono work to your business participants. It could be business group memberships, so the Chamber of Commerce might offer that all participants of the course could receive a 1 year's free membership. Trade discounts, pro bono marketing packages. And also another opportunity for in-kind match is if a community has worked with a building owner that's in the targeted area and they're willing to offer discounted or prorated rent schedules for those businesses, that would also be included as an in-kind match. So there are a couple different ways that you can use the funds that you're requesting for CBL. The first, of course, and the most important, is that 50% of the request that you ask for from DHCD, 50% of that would need to be business award. So if you're asking for $60,000, $30,000 would need to be set aside as as prize money for the businesses who pitch and win. You can use a 10% max for administration. That means the setup, operations. Sometimes this includes a staff member's time. You can also use the funding for marketing and outreach. So it's super critical, obviously, that you get in front of the audience that you need in order to get participants to sign up and complete the program. And then, of course, the knowledge sharing and business curriculum. So this is whoever you might use to provide that business curriculum to the participants. Many communities at times will subcontract this service to complete their CBL curriculum, but subcontractors cannot receive more than 30% of the applicant's total CBL request. So again, if the applicant has submitted a request for $60,000, no more than $18,000 could be paid to a subcontractor to provide that curriculum. There are many ways that people have provided curriculum to their community business launch participants. Many of you may be familiar with co-starters, which does cost a fair amount of money, but a lot of communities will use their local small business development center, the SBDC. Sometimes they'll work with SCORE, the Retired Executives Organization. So there are many, many ways that you can pull together a curriculum that might be a little more cost effective than outsourcing it. Another key component of community business launch is that you must select a targeted area to focus your program. So this, I'll give a little bit more detail of what an eligible targeted area might be in the next slide, but when you think of a targeted area, you want it size-wise to be no more than 1 square mile from one end to the other, and ideally be connected by unifying streetscapes and amenities such as sidewalks, streetlights, street furniture, crosswalks, and trails. Because this is mostly a storefront filling grant opportunity, you want to make sure that people can go from store to store to store that you fill in order to spend money in your community. So some eligible targeted areas. Traditionally, in those who may have participated in community business launch in the past, when we think targeted area, we think historic downtown or designated Main Street district. It could be an urban commercial district. So if you live in a larger urban or city environment, maybe you're focused specifically on a neighborhood district within it. So a good example for the city of Richmond might be Jackson Ward as an urban commercial district. And then additionally, vacant shopping centers are another opportunity to fill vacant storefronts. If you have a vacant shopping center that's in your community that has been there for a while and is ready for some rehabilitation and activity, this could be an opportunity. Newly added in the past few years are 2 other options as a targeted area. Buildings with multi-tenant incubator potential. So think of Artisan Alley, I believe is the name. Oh, excuse me, that's incorrect. But there's one in Harrisonburg, Agora Market, excuse me, in Harrisonburg, which is that building you see, and that's a picture of the inside of it. And it's kind of a curated group of local businesses and makers that are filling that space and also running that space together. So if you're going to take a white elephant building in your community and turn it into a multi-tenant incubator space, you really need to focus on finding the right mix of businesses and finding some sort of structure in which that property would be open and available to the public, and someone's kind of staffing it, managing it, making sure someone's there to check out. The other option is vacant lots, alleys, or infill. So we realize that there are communities that maybe don't have that traditional Main Street district, maybe don't have these large industrial buildings, or maybe the industrial buildings are too large to fill with multi-tenant incubators. So that could be an option for kind of creating some entrepreneurial activity within your community. Now, all of these are excellent options, but if you live in a community that has a vacant commercial real estate, filling a vacant lot or alley is probably not the place to start. So ineligible projects would be applications that seek to fill new buildings or speculative buildings and shopping centers. So no new builds, antique malls that have no retail market strategy or continued business development ventures inside. So meaning they're filling up and they're not kind of rotating people out into storefronts as they grow. And we do not fund programming or incentivizing existing co-working spaces. And again, what I mentioned in the last slide is that the creation of container or mini shed markets or food truck roundups where available move-in ready spaces are available would be ineligible. So we want you to prioritize existing vacancies in your community before trying to work with parking lots in infill. As part of the Community Business Launch Program, grantees are required to host a 6 to 8 week small business curriculum with the following 5 required components. You want to have a curriculum provider that will talk about legal structure, marketing, sales, and advertising for those businesses, operations, state and local compliance, and financial planning and management. Now, a break-even analysis and P&L are critical components of financial planning, and they must be included in the pitch and business plan for any business that wants to be eligible for funding. Business classes can be held virtually, but applicants must provide a physical space for those participants to gather and learn together. We've learned that communities that provide an opportunity for all of those participants to sit in a room together, they learn a lot from each other, just like they do a lot from the business classes. So as part of the community business launch, you will end essentially all of those classes with a pitch competition and business plan evaluation. Businesses that go through the program should be evaluated on both a submitted business plan and their pitch performance. Neither of these should be standalone awarded. Participants should be aware in advance of how their plans are being evaluated. So we often suggest that communities provide the scoring rubric to those participants prior to pitch so that they know what they're going to be evaluated on. And judges and programs should offer follow-up resources to participants that don't win so they can continue to pursue and move their ideas forward. Pitch competitions and award ceremonies must be held in person in the locality the CBL is targeting. So if you are in the city of Roanoke and you are having a pitch competition to fill vacancies in Roanoke, we would want to see that your pitch competition and award ceremony be held there as well. Critical part of your community business launch application and program in general is a market analysis. So many communities often have a market analysis that's been done. If you have one that's been completed within the last 5 years, I would certainly encourage you to submit that as one of your attachments for the application. But for communities that have not had a market analysis done previously, we do provide a market characteristic worksheet that can be completed. Basically, we want to know that the local community, what the local community can and would support in that targeted area. And it'll also help that community recruit local people who are already actively making, selling, and moving in those types of businesses to participate in the program. Marketing the program widely establishes a strong foundation for successful CBL programs, and direct outreach is a key component of a successful program. All right, so prize-winning businesses. To receive grant funds, a business must, of course, be scored both on their written business plan and their pitch performance. They must locate within the selected target area that you have submitted as part of your target area for the application. And they must sign an MOU between the business owner and the awardee, so that's the applicant, you all, outlining the requirements for receiving funding. So a lot of time that MOU looks like that business is agreeing that they are going to receive X amount of dollars in awards of reimbursable money. They have to show receipts for it. that they're going to open a physical storefront and hire 2 employees. So that's like an example, and we have templates that we can share if you get to that point. Another thing that we suggest is that, as a CBL best practice, is that communities have a participant agreement that participants sign the first class that will basically tell them and make sure that everyone is aware and acknowledging that they know they have to locate within that footprint to receive funding from the grant. There are a couple different outcomes that we are looking for as a result of a community business launch program. And that is, we want to know the number of participants that have been trained, the number of business plans that have been completed as a result, the number of new or expanded businesses created, the number of jobs created, the number of previously vacant buildings leased or purchased, and the amount of previously vacant square footage filled. In addition, we like to know the total private investment, which means that you would have to talk to those businesses that have received business awards to find out what of their own money they invested into the business. For those submitting an application, a successful application will provide concrete outcomes in the application. So, for example, you might say, our program will train 12 participants, have 10 business plans submitted, open 3 new or expanded businesses, create 5 jobs, fill 3 vacancies of up to 5,000 square feet, and see $100,000 in private investment in the target area. We want to know what you're aiming for and what we can anticipate from an awarded application. So in addition to the application questions, there are 8 of them that would allow you to describe your project. There are 10 required attachments in order for your application to be reviewed. So in addition to those questions, these are the attachments that you will need to submit. The first is a map of the targeted area with available properties or vacant storefronts labeled. I think the best way to probably do this is to take a screenshot of a Google Earth of the area that you want to target and provide an outline of where the boundary is, and then highlight each of the individual properties that would be targeted to be filled through the program. In addition to that, we would like you to submit a property description sheet. So this provides additional information on the properties that you've identified to be filled. That's information like who the building owner is, how much square feet is available of space, what the previous use of that building was. So if you have a restaurant that's looking to locate in your downtown, pairing them with an existing restaurant space is probably the most cost-effective thing for them to do. And then, of course, is that property being leased or sold by the property owner? And if you've had communication with them. And really, this gives us the opportunity to see that the property owner is aware and wants to participate and is supportive of the process. And a lot of times in these conversations, you'll find out that they're willing to do prorated rent or some sort of incentive to have that building filled. You will need to submit a proof of match. So if you are in a locality who is supportive of the program and providing cash towards the match of this program, you would want to receive from them either a letter stating that they are committing that amount, or you can do, sometimes people provide minutes from a meeting, Board of Supervisors meeting, that shows that the board had committed to that match. You'll also want to submit a project timeline, and this can be really high level. We know that until the awards are made, it's probably hard to pinpoint each specific date, but ideally you want to show us when you want to open applications for participants in your community, when they would close, when the classes would start, when they would end, and you would have a pitch competition, and then the amount of time between the pitch competition and how much time they have to open, so the end of the year. We'd also like to receive a marketing plan showing us how you anticipate communicating that this opportunity is available, specifically how you're going to get in front of the types of businesses that you want to see in your community opening. You will also need to include a draft class curriculum, outlining the 6 required components that I listed earlier, and telling us who will be teaching those classes. We also love to see letters of support. So if you have certain organizations like your locality, your Chamber of Commerce, your Small Business Development Center, any sort of organization like that that is either providing some sort of in-kind match or support to the program, we would love to see a letter of support from them. We also want to see how you're evaluating your businesses that are going through the program. So we ask that you include a scoring rubric for the business competition. I can share examples of this with anyone that is interested from the past, but generally it's all the high level break-even analysis. They know their market, and they also are, of course, locating within that targeted footprint. The market characteristic worksheet, that is the market analysis I mentioned. There is an option to upload a market analysis in the application. If you don't have one, I can provide the market characteristic worksheet that will help you kind of walk through who the market is, what your intended audience is, and the types of businesses that your community might support. And then last but not least, the pitch night prize package worksheet is a required attachment. This can be as simple as a Word document. We want to know how you intend to break down the award funding. So if you apply for $60,000, $30,000 has to be used for prizes. How are you going to break that down into across your winners? Once you get into the application, this is kind of what the budget will look like for you. In the first column, you'll put the request from DHCD, and the other funding will be your match. We suggest that you put administration and marketing under that administration drop-down menu, the first line item. Training workshops, that's the business curriculum, you would put under the second one. And then, of course, half of your request would be that micro enterprise assistance that's going to business awards. So the scoring criteria. You have to obviously submit your application by 5 p.m. on June 17th in order to be reviewed. It has to go through our centralized application management system. That's our grant management system. And in order for us to evaluate it, you have to kind of check all those yes, no criteria of eligibility. So that's that no more than 30% of your funds are being used for the curriculum, your prizes are 50% or more, you have the required match, and you have identified an eligible targeted area. If you have not done those 4 things, we don't evaluate the application. If you do those 4 things, we look at these 5 other categories to evaluate your application. So the first is project impact. That's looking at how the CBL activities will impact your district. Successful applicants will describe their intended outcomes, including the number of businesses being created, expanded, jobs created, vacant real estate leased or purchased, and the potential private investment for the project area. The next category that we will evaluate the application is district amenities and support for entrepreneurs. This criterion considers the additional resources outside of reimbursable cash prizes being provided to the program participants and pitch winners, such as in-kind services like marketing, accounting, legal, or prorated delayed rent schedules. In addition, successful applications should describe how support to entrepreneurs will be continued after opening. We also look at an application's resource efficiency. This criterion considers how efficiently an applicant is proposing to use the grant funding. Successful applicants will maximize funding for entrepreneurs and use creative collaborations within the community to minimize other programmatic costs. We also evaluate your market analysis and outreach. So an applicant should demonstrate a thorough understanding of the market and gaps and leakages that exist within it. Successful applicants will aim to target and recruit businesses that fill the needs within that market. And finally, we do look at organizational capacity and readiness, meaning we consider both the organization's capacity to undertake a CBL program as well as the community's readiness, meaning do they have available move-in ready vacancies where entrepreneurs can locate. The Timeline. If you are registered in CAMS, good job, you've made the first step. If you are not registered in CAMS, I suggest that you do that as soon as possible. It can take a couple of weeks for our organization to approve your organization's application and registration in CAMS. Applications will open tomorrow, April 15th, and close on June 17th, 2026. We plan to review those applications in July and hopefully anticipate an award announcement by the fall, so like September, October timeframe. And then we hope to have those successful projects under contract by the winter, so I think November, December of 2026. That way, once under contract, the projects can be underway and completed by December of the following year. Additional information that you would need to know as you submit an application in CAMS is that grantees must comply with DHCD's audit policy and upload a current COV W-9 to the CAMS portal for upon approval of award. Grantees must have and follow a procurement policy if subcontracting for the project. So if you are planning to subcontract for the curriculum, we would need to see what your procurement policy is and that you are following it in order to subcontract that service. Applications must be submitted through CAMS to be reviewed. So again, if you haven't yet registered your organization in our CAMS system, please do that as soon as possible. Grantees must also be registered with the Virginia Department of Accounts and EVA in order to receive electronic payments. Start this process now. It is an online printable worksheet that you must mail. So it takes some time to submit and to be reviewed, and we need anyone who receives funding from DHCD to have at least started that process in order to receive electronic payments. And then reporting through CAMS is required for all grantees, as I mentioned before, on those high-level outcomes like businesses created, participants trained. Those would happen quarterly, and then one final report at the end of the project. So I'm going to talk about a couple inspirational projects that we've had recently that might be inspiring to you and maybe give you some ideas for your projects moving forward. But Downtown Lynchburg Association is one that I love to talk about. They actually applied for Community Business Launch in 2023, 2024, and 2025. And it was because they had just finished basically construction on their main street. So they had COVID pandemic that shut down a lot of their storefronts. And then they also, in the midst of that, had a construction project happening on their main street. So in order to fill those vacancies, they broke it up into 3 years, and each year they set out to award 5 winners money to open storefronts. So to date, they've awarded 15 businesses, filling 15 previously vacant storefronts, creating 36 jobs, and filling over 75,000 square feet of previously vacant space. And as a result of that training, they've had more businesses open. So they've awarded 15 businesses money to open, but 3 additional businesses opened even without the grant funding that DHCD provided. Another great example from 2 years ago was the town of Hillsville. I don't know, I'm sure not everybody knows where Hillsville is, but it is close to Galax, and it's a pretty small community of 3,000 residents. And we thought that they did an excellent job in terms of impact for a community of their size. They had 15 people participate in the program and be trained, and they created 15 jobs and created 5 businesses. And the Up and Down Cafe is one of the businesses that we highlighted in our last annual report that resulted from their CBL program. And then last but not least, the town of Mount Jackson, they were actually awarded funding in fiscal year 2025 and 26. In fiscal year 2025, they applied for a traditional CBL, meaning they were targeting their vacant storefronts in downtown. And they awarded 4 businesses, creating 12 jobs and filling 4 previously vacant spaces. In 2026, they applied again with the intention of creating a multi-tenant incubator space. So that second picture under Mount Jackson, the building, is a building of historical significance for the community, and it has been there vacant for a very long time. And the town of Mount Jackson has purchased it or is leasing it and will be subleasing space within it to small businesses. So they've already completed their classes for 2026, and they will have, as soon as that building, the Nest, is open, have 4 businesses from their community business launch move in there. And then in addition to that, there are going to be 3 new storefronts opening downtown in their community. All right, now is the opportunity for questions. Let me stop sharing so I can see if there's anything in the chat. Kimberly, yes, this presentation will be made available online after today. It takes a little bit of time to download, but we usually upload it online. And I also will send out an email to the participants who registered for this webinar today with that link as well. Carl, can you apply for more than one target area in the same application? The answer is you can, but it would not be competitive. So we want you to have very, very specific focus on a targeted area. And if there are 2 areas that you are interested in targeting, what we typically suggest is to prioritize one this year and then apply for the second one in the following year. Tiana, could mixed-use properties be eligible? Example, apartments on top, retail on the bottom. Oh, I see a clarification. Permanent. Okay, let me start with your first question. So, as long as the spaces that are being filled are ground level, we would include that as a vacancy. We probably wouldn't want to put businesses on the second floor, but of course, having apartment spaces above would be amazing and great for services downtown to those people who are living there. And you asked, just to clarify, permanent lot space for food trucks and mobile businesses are not eligible, correct? So if you are looking at a food truck roundup or mobile businesses, that is eligible if they're going to be parked somewhere essentially permanently. The only situation in which we would not deem that use eligible is if the community has lots of other vacancies, commercial vacancies nearby. So say you are in a community that has a Main Street district and you have 5 or 6 vacant buildings downtown, we would want to see that you're prioritizing those vacant buildings over creating space for a food truck roundup. Does that make sense? And, if you would like to talk more about your idea, please reach out, and we can walk through it and I can answer any questions you might have about that. Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask it on the webinar. Can a target area include both individual spaces and a co-location space? I guess my follow-up question for that would be, are the individual spaces within walking distance to the co-location space? I think ideally we would want you to focus on one or the other, but it's possible. Obviously, Mountain Jackson did something similar. So again, I would love to talk a little bit more with you about kind of what you have in mind and what that might look like. Yes, I can bring up the slide of ineligible businesses. Give me one moment. So can you guys see that? Ineligible projects would be new builds, so filling a new
Jessica, we
build.
can't see your screen.
Oh, okay, hold on. Thank you for letting me know.
You're welcome. We can see it now. Thank you, Jessica.
Yep. So ineligible projects would be that new build, so a new build or speculative building, shopping center. Um, Antique malls are kind of like multi-tenant retail incubators, except the kind of distinguishing difference for us is that the businesses that you're putting in there will hopefully get to the point where they will relocate to a larger space and you will get new businesses in there to kind of test their business ideas before moving on. So an antique mall, isn't really curated, it's not really focused on a specific market, and it also doesn't have that like turning that we would want to see from an incubator space. We don't want to fund the programming or incentivizing of existing co-working spaces. And then again, those mini shed markets, food truck roundups are all eligible so long as there are not existing vacant spaces in your community that need to be prioritized. Okay, I may have missed the information. Oh, the prize money can be used for pretty much anything the business owner needs. So, operating expenses, property upfit, um, utilities, inventory, payroll, pretty much anything. There's not really much that's off limits for them. It's kind of whatever gets them to where they need to be in order to be successful. The next question is about market analysis. Um, I think for the market analysis, if you're in a larger area like a city or a county, I think we would be interested in seeing a market analysis for that. If what you have is for the city or county, of course, include it. But we would want you to kind of dig a little bit deeper into why you think specific businesses would work in that small retail environment. What if vacant spaces we have are not move-in ready or the owner is unwilling to sell? Um, that is not an uncommon problem, as you can imagine. Um, and so when talking about CBL, a lot of the time, this is a multi-year process, right? So I think if the majority of your spaces are not move-in ready, I think the best place to start is to try to create relationships with those building owners. And Emily, I apologize. I'm not totally sure I know where you're from, but I would love to learn more about the situation that you're in and see if there's a Virginia Main Street program administrator that covers your area that might be able to talk to you a little bit more about that. What Main Street are you in, Emily? All right. Well, let's set up a call with you, me, and Amy, and see if we can talk a little bit about that offline. I think um, there's a little bit of like teeing up that has to happen before you can dive right into CBL, but um, we'll see if we've got some time. So we'll see if we can get you there. Any other questions? I'm trying to check the chat to see if I missed anything. All right, I don't see any, but I am going to briefly pull up my contact information slide so that you guys have it. Oh, I see one now. The most common pitfalls on an application generally are those kind of like must-haves, right? So having the correct amount of business award fund, the correct amount of match, and identifying a specific targeted area. I think that many people try to apply and want to do everything, and they just need to be more specific. What I will say is that anyone who's interested in applying, I suggest reach out to me and I will talk with you in detail on what you are specifically trying to accomplish. But also, I offer this to anyone who applies for CBL or has questions. I am more than happy to kind of give your application an overview before you hit submit, just to make sure you're not missing any of those critical components that would automatically disqualify you from review. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating today. Again, this recording will be uploaded online, and I will also send a link to everybody who registered for the webinar. If you have any questions, please, please, please reach out to me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. And I look forward to hopefully seeing a bunch of applications from you guys. Thanks again.